Hi and welcome to School Shorts with me, Melissa Chan Green, journalist and mum of two with a passion for education. School Shorts is all about sharing information about all of these changes that are going on in education, how it is different from the days that we were at school, and sharing that information to parents to be able to cut through, okay, so what are the key things that we should be doing to support our children, but doing that in a way that's actually manageable and fits with our everyday lives. Anna O'Connor is someone who truly gets that. She is a teacher, she is a mum of two, and she's the founder of a really cool resource called SoundSlam. Anna O'Connor, thank you so much for joining us on School Shorts. It's been a pleasure having a conversation with you about what you're doing, and so excited to share that with everybody else. So can you just tell us a little bit about your personal life in terms of your work as a teacher and, of course, the most important job as a mum?
Thank you so much for having me on, Mel. It's such a pleasure to be here. My name's Anna, and I am a mother of two girls, one who's 5 months old and one who's 3.5. And we live in Sydney, Australia, in the state of New South Wales, but we haven't been here long. I was teaching at a school in regional New South Wales most recently, but we've had to move back to the city for my husband's job, but I think temporarily.
And you you have been teaching as well. Tell us a bit about your teaching history.
Yeah, I'm a primary school teacher, so I have mainly spent my time working in the younger years, and I'd say the younger years and specifically literacy is really where my passion lies. And even in the time since I've graduated university and been teaching in the classroom, a lot's changed. And it's funny when teachers who have been in the field a lot longer than me, veteran teachers, say, yeah, welcome to my world. But teachers are such amazing people, and I've been so lucky to be mentored by these fantastic professionals who are happy to grab the bull by the horns and do the learning themselves and put in the hours, and all for the best outcomes for their students, because that's all teachers are just so passionate about that.
Yeah, and I guess like a lot of professions, research changes, knowledge changes, we know more, and I guess sometimes that changes practices. Was there any particular challenge or any particular moment where you thought, I think there's something I can do here to help other parents?
Yeah, I suppose looking back in hindsight, there was probably a few different moments along the way. Notably when COVID happened and we moved into remote learning, it was really funny to see parents wide-eyed as the veil was lifted, and they could look through what their child was doing at home and be like, okay, so the learning to read has changed a lot since we were learning to read, or since the parents were learning to read. And the feedback at that time was really fascinating, with parents saying, that segmenting and blending was really new in our house, and we did it in the learning activity that you set in the morning, and then they were like, but then we did it in the bath, and then we did it over dinner, and then we were doing it in the car or on our 1 kilometre walk with the radius they were allowed to stick in. And they were saying it's games and it's fun and it's playful, isn't it? And it's these small things that I think a lot of parents didn't realise that they could and should be doing at home that can really make a difference to their child. And a lot of parents sort of wanted more and were going, what else can we be doing? And it's like, parents were really curious about that. Another moment was probably once all my friends started having children and were asking me questions, and being able to say like, we are doing things differently to how we learnt to read, and being able to give pointers and tips along the way. And no one was more interested than my friend Lucy, who is now my business partner as well. And she comes from a psychology and research background. And I would give a bit of advice, and she'd be going, why? Why is that important? Or why is that more important than that? Which one's actually going to make a difference? Like, if I'm going to do a literacy activity with my child, I want to do the one that's going to give me the best bang for my buck. And I sent her articles to read, and I told her to listen to Sold a Story by Emily Hampford, and we swapped podcasts. And I was really interested in all of this research that was coming out around the science of reading, but it was great to be matched by someone who then would read it, and we could discuss and share notes and share thoughts. And then I think it really gave us the chance to strike this balance of what matters and what is actually really actionable to parents. It was like I would tag her in these amazing Instagram accounts that had these beautiful, well thought out activities, crafts, scavenger hunts. And she was like, which of our friends, honestly, in our friendship group, can you imagine one person doing this? Nobody is coming home after a long day of work and stopping off via the $2 shop to buy the craft activities and the PVA glue to set up this absolutely beautiful and I'm sure effective teaching experience for their children. I think most people just say, no, not for me. I'll just do nothing if it's going to be that hard.
Yeah,
and I don't think between the two of us.
Yeah, it's not that people don't want to do anything full stop. It's just that it has to be manageable, right? As a family, there are so many things that are all important, like feeding your children, earning a living. All of those things are important too. So it has to be manageable.
And I think with social media, you can get all this amazing information, the best way to prepare your child for school, or the best food to feed your baby, or the best way to get your child to go to sleep. And if everything's being fed at you as this is the most important, this is the most important, this is the most important, you can really drown in over information and over, I'm sure everyone, if they're anything like me, has about 1,000 activities saved in their Instagram grid that I never open. I never reopen that. All the right intentions, but it has to be actionable. It has to be something that they're going to execute and that makes sense. And I suppose that's exactly what we're aiming for with SoundSlam and with the knowledge that we're putting across on our Instagram pages as well, or social media pages.
Yeah, totally. And I think that was kind of the idea behind School Shorts too. It's like, well, you only have to just listen to some information for a little bit every week, and actually just from that information, you will then know what is manageable in my everyday life. And if it's just giving your kids some experiences and talking about that to enrich their vocabulary, then that's really useful for reading.
And I love my weekly time listening to School Shorts. So, yeah, you're doing a great
thank you,
job.
Anna. Have you seen, you spoke a little bit about the changes that have been going on in Australia. Have you seen a little of what's going on here in New Zealand? And is it the same kind of change, speed of change that you're seeing there? Not expecting you to know all the ins and outs, but just in general, are you seeing that?
I'm so embarrassed to admit that I've only been to New Zealand once earlier this year. I'd love to come and do a school tour and see what's happening there. And even further to add to the embarrassment, I was absolutely deserved it, copped my fine at border security for a half-eaten apple in my daughter's lunchbox, and I so deserved it because there are signs everywhere warning about the dangers of it, and I just completely forgot. And I was pulled up by the
full New Zealand experience.
Yes, I was pulled up by the cutest little sniffer dog. My goodness, it was just so adorable. So if anyone was going to bust me for it, I'm glad it was this gorgeous little puppy dog at the airport. But it sounds to me like there are very remarkable things happening in New Zealand in the literacy space. And what I really love in the newspaper articles I've read and report is it's not just being, we are now doing phonics. It's actually saying it's structured literacy, and the comprehension's being mentioned, the vocabulary is being mentioned, the oral language is being mentioned. Because if you are just saying we're changing and now we're doing structured synthetic phonics, it's just too narrow-minded, and it has to encompass all of these things. And I think sometimes where the science of reading and the science of learning goes wrong is that the media puts out the idea that it's nothing but phonics and that's what's changing. And some people think, well, great, I already do that, so I'm done, science of reading finished. Or some people then only teach to phonics, ignoring some of these other really crucial factors. And although it's young and we don't have a lot of the long-lasting data to see how structured literacy is going to go in the long term, if you are just doing structured synthetic phonics and you're neglecting these other really important areas, you're sort of giving the critics an opportunity to say, it didn't work. It has to really be everything for it to be effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
The newspaper articles in New Zealand.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that if there are families listening, then I would say the key thing to know there is that background knowledge and the kind of knowledge-rich talk about what's happening in the curriculum is something that's important to know as families, because if you can scaffold your kids with background knowledge about a range of different topics, then they are not just going to be relying on phonics for reading, whether or not that's what's happening in their school or not, right?
You're exactly right. I was lucky enough to hear Natalie Wexler speak at a conference the other day, and she, of course, is the author of the book The Knowledge Gap. And she had on one of her slides a picture of Velcro, and she said, background knowledge is the Velcro on which everything else can stick. And you can't, it's not a matter of pre-teaching. It's not pre-teaching the curriculum, it's keeping your child's world wide. And you mentioned this earlier, but if you're going to an appointment, or if you're going to, within reason, they can't come to a board meeting or whatever, but if you're going somewhere that a child can get away with being there, you're just exposing them to these new experiences, new vocabulary, and it's going to stick. And it helps build their background knowledge and their vocabulary, and creates these schemas within which all the new knowledge can stick to, and make them such an effective learner. And yeah, it was so fascinating hearing Natalie's passion for this topic.
Yeah, she definitely is one of the experts in this area. And excitingly, we have her on School Shorts very soon too.
Oh, wonderful.
Talking more about that. Yeah. What impact do you think there has been around gamification in education? And I'm asking you this as an educator, as a parent, but I guess also as someone who, and we'll get to it soon, has come up with a game of sorts. So where do you stand in terms of what games are good and what games might actually be not so good?
I've had to really reckon with this for myself, because in the classroom, I have always used the iPad and a learning app as part of a rich, balanced learning experience within the classroom. And I've always had it as a tool. And there was a time when I was first reading all of these things where I almost wanted to bury myself in the guilt over this, that I was like, oh no, have I been doing wrong by my students all these years by having the iPad out? And there's an element of it that I knew wasn't perfect. And when the apps are making these dinging noises and giving these children this sense of dopamine hit similar to a poker machine, I do always remember being like, that doesn't feel right, that it's encouraging them to sort of get a sense of external achievement, or what do you call it, external motivation. But at the same time, it really did motivate some students to learn because they really loved that aspect of it. What I know now is that if you are relying on the iPad, I think that you need to be aware of what you're giving. And so if you're giving the child an iPad or an app to work with, to make it effective, you should be sitting next to them. And to make it work, you should be doing the activity together. And I think that most parents are giving the iPad in terms of, I need time to myself, so I'll give them the iPad to do something, and at least they're learning, so I don't need to feel guilty. Whereas what I would say is, if you're going to put your child in front of the TV, or you need that time to yourself, just call it relaxation time. Call it what it is. Call it the time that you're doing for yourself. But giving it to them and then expecting your child to learn to read because you place them by themselves on an iPad, it just doesn't marry up. Because the best environment, especially for a preschooler, to get these pre-reading learning skills is in a oral language rich environment. Is in somewhere where you are demonstrating as a parent that you care about their education and you care about them learning to read. You're on board, you're on the same page. You need to have, that sense of connection around what you're doing. So I no longer feel guilty over what I did, because it was a management tool to make sure that I was able to meet the needs of everyone in a really busy, full classroom. I would definitely do things differently now. But I think if every teacher remembers all the mistakes that they made before we knew, you could really, fall down the guilty hole.
Totally. And same as a parent.
Yes, I'm sure there are a lot of parents who feel the same way. And I'm proud of what we've created, even though I know it's a game. But when you are coming together to play a family card game, that's the sort of things that we kept in mind and we really felt were of the utmost importance. It had to be something that allowed families to come together, to have that sense of connection at the end of the day, that had a strong emphasis on social skills, winning, losing, taking turns, being gracious, that had all the oral language opportunities, vocabulary able to be expanded, discussed, strengthened. And so in that sense, I'm really proud of what we've created.
And I think just coming back to what you were saying there about the word relying in particular, right? It's, I guess that, that every child perhaps has different needs, but I guess when you think about that word relying, then you're taking away the idea that actually you don't have to be part of that in some way.
Yeah, and learning to read, as one bit of advice for any parent listening would be, make it your journey too. It is ultimately your child's journey, but be a part of it. Elbow your way in there. Speak to the teacher, be involved, be interested, because that has actually been shown to be a really effective thing to push their reading trajectory higher. If they know that their parents value this, then that can lead to further success for that individual learner.
So tell me a little about Sound Slam, and I say me, but actually I'm saying for the people listening, because we have had a chance to play it, and I did tell you that we went away on holiday. Basically, most of us got really sick, and so all we did was sit inside playing games. And actually, at the time, I kind of thought, oh, this is not the holiday I expected. But then at the end, I reflected that actually for my kids, they got to sit around with both their parents playing games the whole time. They played Sound Slam. They loved it. It was the ideal holiday for them. So thank you for sending that game, because we really enjoyed it.
I'm sorry to hear you were sick on your holiday, but I'm so glad that your family is loving playing Sound Slam. Lucy and I created Sound Slam with the idea that if parents knew how easy and fun it was to build phonological and phonemic awareness at home, they could make a really big difference right from the first day of their child's formal schooling. Phonemic awareness is one part of phonological awareness, but it's really important. And in fact, it's the biggest predictor of a child's reading success. So if your child on the very first day of school has strong phonemic awareness, then studies have shown that they are more likely to succeed in learning to read in the long term. Year 9, they're still reading successfully. And I think what a lot of parents didn't realise is that building it at home is not a chore. It's fun, it's oral, it's easy. It's something that you can do in a 5-minute car trip. It's something you can do while they're in the bath. It's just all these little silly games that you play. If you're a family who plays rock, paper, scissors, then you can also adopt a tiny little phonological or phonemic awareness game alongside that they won't know at all that they're learning, but it's actually really going to move the needle in terms of their success with reading. So we wanted to make a game that kids loved to play and that also really helped the parents in terms of their own knowledge of what matters before their child actually gets to school.
So this is going back to the all those lovely accounts that you were following and all the things that you had to set up to do these games, and you came to the conclusion that actually this is easy, this is fun, and this is what families will actually be able to do.
Their families will actually play. That's exactly right. You just pick up the cards, you deal it, and you're in it. You don't need to think about it. There's no brain space for the parent. It's just there. A few minutes, a couple of times a week can make such a big difference. And what we really needed to do with that as well was then to make sure that it was something that children asked to play. It had to be something that they enjoyed and they actually asked to play. So we worked with an artist called Isabel Eastwood, and every single of the 69 Sound Slam cards has been hand drawn by her, an Australian artist, in a really fun and engaging way. And what makes Sound Slam different is there are no words on the cards, there's no letters on the cards. It's just focusing on those listening skills. So you can look at the cards and match cat, car, cap, kangaroo. Even though it starts with a different letter, it's got the same starting sound. And the kids are having so much fun and it's beautiful and it brings them in and the whole family can enjoy it together.
Yeah, and there are different ways to play depending on the age of your child, which is what we found quite useful with a 6-year-old and a 2-year-old, that actually there were ways that we could all play together. Finally, any other kind of holiday recommendations? People will be on holiday at the moment and be thinking about ways in which that they can fill the rest of their time until school starts again. What would your recommendations be?
We often share different little phonological or oral games on our Instagram page, which is SoundSlam AU. So if parents wanted any ideas, they're welcome to come and have a look on there for different suggestions that we make. Anything that sort of builds conversation, background knowledge in the family home is fantastic. So the age-old I Spy, probably focusing on sounds instead of letter names. So, I spy something beginning with S rather than the letter S, so that preschoolers, it's more achievable for them. We also play the opposite game a lot in my house, where I'll just say a word and see if we can come up with an opposite. And sometimes my daughter wants to make a suggestion and she's like, what's the opposite of window? And, it's not necessarily have an opposite, but that's a rich conversation and explanation in itself. So lots of little fun games like that you can do just as you go about your day. We even just any segmenting and blending game. What's this word? Cat. And if they're not quite at that level, you can do it with syllables instead. So what's this word? Table. And are they able to put those two syllables together to say table? This is me just talking mainly at a preschool age bracket, but all of those little things, your child doesn't need to know that it's learning. It's just a fun thing that you're doing together as a family. I'll also say that the society has done a really good job in getting across the point that you should read to your children. And I think that message has been heard and people are doing it. What I would say to amp it up is to read to them, yes, but read broadly. And that word broadly arcs back to what we were talking about in terms of building that really important oral language. And I think where a lot of families come a bit unstuck with their reading is that they've got maybe 30 books on their bookshelf and every night they're returning to those same ones and the child's probably asking for the same book every single night, and the parents gotten to a stage where they're really, really sick of that book and the child is then sensing mum or dad don't really like reading to me, and reading becomes a chore instead of this amazing nightly or daytime ritual that you can enjoy together as a family. So I would say go to a book fair and buy 50 more books. They're $1 each at my local secondhand bookstore, secondhand book fair that comes every few months, or make a weekly trip to the library and just consciously thinking of reading broadly, different topics, different genres, and then talk about what you read so that that background knowledge, vocabulary, oral language is just something that your family does. And you don't even need to think about it. You don't need to plan it. It's just factored into your week, that it's just part of who your family is.
Yeah. I always say, don't forget to, I say to the kids, don't forget to go and look in the non-fiction section.
Yes.
I think libraries are often, especially in the children's areas, geared around the fiction because, there's so many amazing, rich, wonderful stories there. But on the outside, where the non-fiction is, there are lots of things that kids can really capture their imagination there as well, or topics that they're interested in. And it won't be at their reading level necessarily, but if you read it together as a family or even just look at the pictures and talk about what you're seeing.
Absolutely.
That's really useful too. Well, Anna, thank you so much for being with us. And do you want to just mention again how people can find out more about SoundSlam?
Yeah, so we have a website, which is www.soundslam.com.au, and we have a blog there that sort of talks about the history of reading instruction, and we have an Instagram and TikTok, which is SoundSlam AU, where we share actionable tips that families can do, sort of factoring in the big six of reading, and our card game can be purchased through the website or our Instagram page.
Wonderful. And hopefully you can make another trip down under
I'd
here
love
to New
to.
Zealand at some point. Just
love to.
don't forget to get rid of your fruit beforehand.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If that topic was helpful for you and you'd like to hear more, please do like and subscribe. It sends me that feedback. School Shorts is all about supporting busy parents who want their children to thrive. Follow on social at School Shorts NZ for fun ideas, helpful resources, and exclusive giveaways.